Back in 1932, Ford unleashed the Flathead V8, an engine so bold it redefined what a car could do. They literally put 8-cylinder power into the hands of everyday drivers and sparked a culture that would become hot rodding. Millions of cars rolled off the line with this simple, rugged design, and for a time it seemed unstoppable. But brilliance has its shadows. What happens when success turns into stubbornness and innovation gives way to arrogance? How does a revolutionary engine go from trailblazer to a cautionary tale? Stay with us because today, we're unpacking the story of Ford's legendary Flathead V8. Let's start with why the Flathead was an absolute game-changer. The 1932 Ford Flathead V8 didn't tiptoe into the car world. It barged in, completely shattering people's expectations of what a normal, everyday driver could possibly afford to own. Before it showed up, a V8 was this rare, expensive thing reserved for luxury buyers or race teams with deep pockets. Then Ford drops a mass-market car with 8 cylinders, real torque, and a price tag normal families could live with. It wasn't just a new engine, it was a cultural revolution, offering 65 horsepower, a 30% power boost over the competing Chevrolet 6-cylinder engine, in an affordable package. Suddenly, anyone with a wrench and a weekend could chase speed. Teenagers figured out how to tear one down in their garage. Bootleggers discovered they could outrun just about anyone. And as the Great Depression dragged on, the Flathead accidentally kicked off something no one at Ford predicted. The roots of America's hot rodding movement, dry lake racers, salt flat speed freaks, and backyard builders all realized this little side valve V8 had way more potential than Ford advertised. Even in stock form, it came with a personality. It had a throaty sound that almost dared you to find an empty road. People loved that it wasn't intimidating. It was this honest lump of cast iron that said, "You want to go faster? Try me." And people did, again and again, because the Flathead made power accessible instead of exclusive. But while the world fell in love with this engine's possibilities, Ford started falling in love with something far more dangerous: its own legend. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this video, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps us keep these stories on the road. All right, first, let's talk about the strengths that made it a giant. What made the Flathead more than just a popular engine was how perfectly it fit its moment. People were hungry for something simple, strong, and cheap to maintain, and the Flathead delivered all three like it was checking boxes on purpose. Its whole design leaned on straightforward practicality. No overhead valve maze, no complicated moving parts, just a side valve layout that anyone with basic tools could understand. And the cost? When the Model 18 V8 debuted in 1932, the entire car cost just $600, making sure that the V8 a driveway reality for everyone. Mechanics loved it because repairs were fast. Drivers loved it because it ran reliably even when owners pushed maintenance a little too far, as people tend to do. It was the kind of engine you could tune by feel. Then there was scale. Ford didn't just build the Flathead, they built in total over 15 million Flathead V8s during their production run between 1932 and 1953 in the US. That massive production volume meant parts were everywhere. Junkyards overflowed with usable blocks. Speed shops popped up selling cams, heads, and intakes because they knew there'd be customers. By the late 30s and through the 40s, the Flathead had become the American V8. Its look, its sound, and even the way it looked to rev turned it into a symbol of accessible performance. But that towering success also created a trap. When something becomes iconic, it's easy for a company to think the magic will last forever. And that mindset fed directly into Ford's growing arrogance. Henry Ford had a gift for seeing what people needed before they knew they needed it, but he also had a stubborn streak that could stop a freight train. With the Flathead's early success, over 4.5 million V8-powered Fords had been sold by 1941, capturing the mass market for powerful engines. That streak hardened into a belief that the original design was already perfect. In his mind, the engine didn't need big changes. It just needed to keep rolling off the line. After all, it had made V8 power affordable, it sold in massive numbers, and people seemed happy. So why mess with it? Inside the company, engineers were pushing for improvements. They wanted more airflow, better cooling, and room for higher compression ratios. But Henry Ford wasn't having it. He saw redesigns as unnecessary, expensive, and, maybe most importantly, an admission that the original idea wasn't flawless. And if there was one thing Henry Ford hated, it was admitting that something might need to move on from his original vision. That mindset shaped the company culture. When the boss treats criticism like an insult, real innovation becomes risky. Engineers learned to tread lightly. Major changes got dismissed before they even reached the blueprint stage. The Flathead's early wins became a shield Ford hid behind, convincing himself that the engine was already exactly what the market wanted and would continue wanting. Despite being technologically superior, a prototype overhead valve V8 was reportedly developed and built by Ford engineers as early as 1939, only to be dismissed by management. But the world doesn't freeze just because one company decides it should. The car industry was evolving fast, and Ford's good enough attitude was about to crash into reality. After Henry Ford set the tone, the rest of the organization followed it almost automatically. Management was convinced the Flathead's long winning streak, which saw over 4.5 million V8-powered Fords sold by 1941, proved it could keep carrying Ford far into the future. They weren't just proud of the engine, they were anchored to it. When you build millions of something and the public loves it, it becomes easy to believe the success will never taper off. And inside Ford, that belief turned into a habit. Trust what worked yesterday and assume it will work tomorrow. But engineers kept raising the same red flags. They warned about cooling issues that showed up whenever the engine was pushed harder. They pointed out how the Siamese exhaust passages trapped heat. They talked about airflow limitations that capped power growth, no matter how clever the tuning was. And as post-war buyers started demanding more horsepower, engineers argued that the Flathead was running out of room to grow. Management didn't want to hear it. And that tension with optimism at the top and frustration at the bottom was a slow-burning fuse. Ford believed that the past was a reliable roadmap, but the competition was drawing a whole new one. And then came the technical limits Ford refused to confront. For all its charm, the Flathead carried some serious engineering baggage that Ford couldn't wish away. The biggest issue was baked right into the design. With the valves sitting beside the cylinders instead of above them, airflow had to twist and bend its way through narrow passages. That meant the engine could only breathe so well, no matter how much carburation or ignition tuning you threw at it. Hot rodders squeezed impressive gains out of these engines, sure, but they were always fighting physics. Then there were the Siamese exhaust ports. Two cylinders shared the same passage, which created a heat pocket that loved to cook everything around it. Under heavy loads or higher compression, that trapped heat pushed the engine toward cracking, detonation, and chronic overheating. Ford tried to patch these weaknesses with tweaks over the years, like new water pumps, better radiator caps that raised the boiling point from 212 to around 230 degrees, and also made changes to cams and pistons. Those were helpful, but they weren't real fixes. They were band-aids on a design that had already hit its ceiling. As drivers demanded more power after the war, the Flathead struggled to keep up. The harder people pushed it, the more its weak points showed. You could hop it up, but you were always playing a balancing act between heat, durability, and airflow. And while Ford kept insisting the engine just needed one more small improvement, the rest of the industry was proving that bold redesigns were the only way forward. In 1949, Oldsmobile fired the first real warning shot with the Rocket V8, an all-new design producing 135 horsepower from 303 cubic inches. It used an overhead valve layout that breathed better, ran cooler, and delivered stronger power without sweating bullets. In the same year, Cadillac followed with its own 331 cubic inch OHV V8, rated at a robust 160 horsepower, which was smooth and efficient in a way the Flathead simply couldn't match. And then in 1951, Chrysler stepped in with the early Firepower Hemi, producing an impressive 180 horsepower, showing everyone what serious airflow really looked like. These engines weren't just new, they were a generation leap. Overhead valves gave competitors a massive advantage. Instead of routing intake and exhaust gases through tight, heat-soaked side passages, the valves now sat right above the combustion chamber. Air could rush in and blast out with far less resistance. Engineers had more room to raise compression, more freedom to play with chamber shape, and a much easier path to higher horsepower. Cooling systems didn't have to fight trapped heat, blocks didn't crack under stress, and drivers noticed the difference immediately. The power numbers told the story. Competitors quickly pushed past what the Flathead could manage with ease. Even when Ford bumped compression on engines like the Mercury 255, to squeeze out around 125 horsepower. The rivals' overhead valve designs were already climbing higher with less drama. By 1953, the Flathead peaked at just 110 horsepower in Ford cars, while Oldsmobile's V8 was up to 170 horsepower and Cadillac's was at 210 horsepower. The writing on the wall couldn't have been clearer, but inside Ford, leadership still clung to the belief that the old V8 had enough life left. They underestimated how fast the market was shifting and how hungry buyers were for modern performance. And then came the moment when the world moved forward and Ford started slipping behind. Once World War II ended, the car market didn't just bounce back, it transformed. People wanted stronger engines for long trips, better durability for everyday driving, and more efficiency as fuel quality shifted. Hot rodders were pushing cars harder than ever, showing what real power looked like on dry lakes and drag strips, and regular buyers were paying attention. Power suddenly mattered in a way it hadn't before, and bragging rights started selling cars. The Flathead, for all its history, wasn't built for this new era. Its airflow limits were becoming impossible to ignore. Even with tweaks like hotter cams in truck versions or raising compression in models like the Mercury 255, producing around 125 horsepower by 1953, the core design stayed the same. The Flathead delivered around 110 horsepower in many early 50s passenger cars, while competitors' overhead valve engines leaped past it with room to spare. For instance, the 1950 Chrysler New Yorker's inline-8 engine produced 165 horsepower, and the 1951 Chrysler Firepower Hemi V8 debuted with 180 horsepower. Drivers could feel the difference on the road. The old V8 still had charm, but charm doesn't win races or satisfy customers who want more pull on the highway. And as performance expectations climbed, the Flathead's heat issues became a bigger problem. Overheating wasn't just an annoyance anymore. It was a sign the engine couldn't handle the demands of the post-war age. People who once loved the Flathead started drifting toward brands offering smoother, cooler-running modern V8s. By 1953, the Oldsmobile V8 produced 170 horsepower, and the Cadillac V8 produced 210 horsepower, significantly outperforming the Flathead. The world was shifting fast, but Ford's leadership still kept trying to stretch the Flathead's life instead of preparing for the future. And that hesitation only became more obvious once Ford finally introduced its long-overdue replacement. While Oldsmobile and Cadillac had already introduced their overhead valve V8 engines in 1949, producing up to 160 horsepower, Ford's new Y-block arrived in U.S. passenger cars in 1954, initially producing 130 horsepower. This had put Ford 5 years behind competitors who had significantly more powerful engines at the time, such as the 1949 Oldsmobile Rocket V8 with 135 horsepower and the 1949 Cadillac 331 V8 with 160 horsepower, compared to Ford's final 1953 Flathead V8 producing only 110 horsepower. The new Y-block itself wasn't a bad engine. It brought the deeper block skirt, improved lubrication, and the airflow advantages the Flathead simply couldn't match. But the problem wasn't the engine, it was the timing. Ford was no longer leading the conversation. They were playing catch-up, and everyone knew it. Buyers didn't compare the Y-block to the early Rocket or the first Hemi. They compared it to the engine's rivals already perfected by the time Ford arrived. Meanwhile, some markets still clung to the Flathead even longer. Canadian and Australian Fords didn't get the Y-block until 1955, and in Brazil, the old design lived on into the 1960s under Simca, eventually ending its life under Chrysler of all companies. That stretch only made Ford's hesitation look worse. The company that once broke boundaries with a mass-market V8 now looked like it was afraid to let go. The delay didn't just cost Ford technological momentum, it weakened the brand's performance identity right when power wars were heating up. And then came the consequences that Ford couldn't avoid. When the Rocket, the Hemi, and the Cadillac OHV engines started dominating performance conversations, Ford was stuck polishing a relic while everyone else chased the future. Car buyers noticed. Hot rodders noticed. By the early 50s, if you wanted to build something fast without fighting the engine every step of the way, you went looking for newer OHV power. The Flathead could still be made quick in the right hands. people were squeezing serious speeds out of modified versions, like Dick Fulmer hitting nearly 120 miles per hour with a light car and a 312 cubic inch setup. But those were exceptions. The average driver didn't want a science project. They wanted straightforward, reliable horsepower, and with a stock 1953 Flathead V8 producing only 110 horsepower, Ford wasn't delivering it compared to the 165 horsepower from rivals like the 1950 Chrysler New Yorker's inline 8. Meanwhile, General Motors used the performance spotlight to cement itself as the company setting trends rather than following them. And Chrysler doubled down with engines that turned heads everywhere from drag strips to showroom floors. Ford, once the disruptor, became the company trying to justify old technology in a world that had clearly moved on. Between 1952 and 1954, GM and Ford saw their market share increase. But Chrysler took a significant hit in market share, falling to 13.5% by mid-1954, illustrating the high stakes of market perception and engine technology. And once you lose the performance narrative, it's almost impossible to get it back quickly. Ford's pride in the Flathead turned into a slow leak in their reputation. Inside Ford, the stubborn loyalty to the Flathead wasn't just an engineering issue. Henry Ford's grip on the business, even into his later years, created a culture where questioning long-standing ideas felt almost dangerous. Engineers could see the limits stacking up, but management kept pointing back to the Flathead's earlier success. This mindset didn't stop at engines. Ford was struggling with internal chaos through the late 40s and early 50s. Henry Ford II had to step in and clean up a company that was slipping into disorganization. The Flathead debate was just one example of how decisions were being shaped more by tradition than by strategy. When a company becomes convinced that what worked before will always work, progress slows, innovation stalls, and the competition pulls ahead without even trying. This period of internal strife coincided with a significant decline in profitability. Ford Motor Company was losing over $9 million per month by 1946, forcing a major reorganization effort led by Henry Ford II and a team of former Air Force officers known as the Whiz Kids. Even Ford's global operations showed signs of this slowdown. The old design kept circulating long after it was outdated. In Brazil, the Flathead kept going through Simca and then Chrysler until the late 1960s. That extended life didn't make Ford look loyal to its heritage. It made them look like they couldn't move on. The leadership crisis wasn't just about engines. It was about a mindset that resisted change right when the industry needed bold direction. And there's a lesson in Ford's saga that companies can't just ride nostalgia. They must innovate continually. Ford eventually responded with the Y-block OHVE in the mid-1950s. But the gap in credibility and performance was already felt. In the end, the Flathead V8 remains an icon, but its history is also a warning. So what do you say? Could Ford have kept the Flathead relevant if it had embraced change sooner? And what lessons do today's automakers take from Ford's stubbornness and missed opportunities? Comment your thoughts below, like and subscribe for more deep dives like this. Thanks for watching.